Welcome back. We're going to do this one a little bit differently than the last one. Um, this is our project music box, project 4.2 on our Arduino smart home. And so before I go through the code, I'm actually just going to, let's look at first off, we're going to try and make it run first, and then we'll go through the code. So first and foremost, what we need to do is bring in this music esp underscore home.h. So we went through something very similar in the last video where we need to add a zip library. And we're going to find ours in Home, Arduino, 236, Key Studio, Arduino, Libraries. And we want Music ESP3 Home. So where is that? Huh. Interesting. Library installed. I don't know if this is the same one. So let's see what happens when we run it, because I think it's going to fail. I could be wrong. Huh, okay, it's running. Maybe we got the right library. Okay, that's done uploading. Okay, so that's working. Now let's talk about what's going on. We're going to look down in the code and we see this switch case, which is, we'll talk about that in a minute. But we played this music, Ode to Joy. And now it says play a different song based on button press count. So the next song should be, ideally, Merry Christmas, and then Tetris. So let's see what happens when I push this button. That seems to be working. And let's try. I actually don't know those songs very well, so we're not printing anything to the console. So can't really tell what's going on right now. Well, we should be printing the button counts to the console. Yeah, there's a 3. This is the Tetris song. And we'll press it again. We have to wait until the song finishes, apparently. Okay, so while we're doing that, let's go through the code. So we had to include this library, which we did. That was in the zip file. We are going to initialize a music player. We're going to call it music, and we're going to pin it on GPIO 25. And then we are going to define button number 1 on pin 16. And then after that, we are going to initialize an integer, and we'll name it button count, and we'll give it a value of 0. Remember, a single equal sign is an assignment operator. We're going to establish a Boolean. We're going to call it music flag and assign it the value of 0. Flag to trigger music playback. Okay. Then our setup function, we see serial begin 9600. Pin mode, button 1 is an input. Okay. Remember, this button 1 is hardware. We have these available music options. Those might be, these are commented out. As you can see, they're commented out in the original code too. We might be able to mess with those later. But let's look in our let's look in our loop function. So we don't return anything. It's a void, void return type. So we don't return anything to the user. We have a loop function, Boolean button1 value. We're going to read the digital value of button number 1. This is the hardware, remember, that we defined up here. Scroll this down a little bit. And now, this is the pain in the butt. Everything else down here, we have an if statement. We have an if statement nested in that, a while statement nested inside the if statement, an if statement nested inside the while statement, another if statement nested in here, and all the way in here we have this switch case block, which is kind of a... So, this is going to be like if button value of 1 is equal to 0, delay by 10 milliseconds, and if button value of 1 is equal to 0, then establish a Boolean within this scope called button state and assign it the value of 1. And then while the button state is equal to 1, and it says waiting until the button is released, then while that's happening, while it's equal to 1, then a Boolean named button value, we will assign that the digital read property of the hardware button 1. Whatever it's reading at the time, it'll assign it to that. And if button value, darn it, this that we just made, if button value is equal to 1, which means if the button's released, then music flag is equal to 1. Let's see, where's our music flag? Let's see, I thought I saw that up here earlier. I thought we established that somewhere. I'll have to find it later. I probably just went over it and already forgot it. But music flag. Oh, Boolean music flag up here. So music flag is a Boolean, so it can only be it can only be a 1 or a 0. So if the button value is equal to 1, then we're going to assign the value of 1 to the music flag, and we're going to increment the button count by 1. And then we are also going to print to the console, to the serial console, the value of button count. So whatever that happens to read, and then cycle through 1 through 3 count. If the button count equals 4, then we're going to assign the button count to 1. So if we keep pressing it, and by the time it says, okay, well, we incremented and we're on 4 now. Well, we know we only have 3 songs. We don't have a 4th song. So by the time we get to the 3rd song, we're just going to say, okay, instead of making it 4, it incremented to 4, but we're going to set it back to 1, meaning it's going to play song 1 again. So that's all of that, and nested within all of this is, as a programmer, switch case statements are the thing that I always hear people complain about. Every programmer I've ever met, if they complain about one thing, it's a switch case statement. They will avoid these things at all cost because switch case statements can be confusing. They're not. They can be, but they take some time just to break them down and understand them. So what's a good use case? If let's say we're playing a video game where you have, and this is not uncommon to play a video game like Borderlands, where you have a lot of different types of weapons, right? And it doesn't really matter which weapon you have equipped, whether you have a pistol or an SMG or a rifle or a sniper rifle or a launcher. They're all different weapons. They all take different ammunitions. So when you hit the reload button, you're going to reload whichever type of weapon is in your hand, right? You're not going to reload all of your weapons. You're only going to reload the one weapon that is in your hand at the moment. And that's a good case for a switch case. So in that case, we would switch on the equipped weapon. And in case number one, if equipped weapon was an SMG, we would load SMG ammo. In case two, if the equipped weapon was a pistol, we would load pistol ammo. And in case 3, if it was a launcher, we would load launcher ammo. And that's just how a switch case works. And at the end of every case, you have to have a break to get out of this. If loop, you have to break. So it'll reload, it'll break, and then it'll sit there and wait again for you to hit the reload button. And once again, next time you hit the reload button, it's going to do a check, and it's going to say, okay, we're going to switch on equipped weapon, and oh, this time it's not a pistol, this time it's an assault rifle, or this time it's a launcher. And it's just going to take whichever case of equipped weapon. If case number 1 is you get it. So that's how switch case statements work. They're long, and they can be confusing, especially if you don't have good variable names. They can be very confusing. But that's really all we're doing. So we're switching on the button count. So whatever the value of this button count is, see, if button count is 4, there's nothing for it to go to. So, we don't have a 4th, right? So that's why they set it back to 0 down here. Button state equals 0. They set it back to 0, music flag. Well, no, it's that button count. That button count. So if button count reaches 4, then they set it back to 1 because we only have 3 different cases for button count. We don't have a 4th. And then after the switch case, there's a button state. Set the button state to 0, and it says to exit the wait loop. So all of this is nested in here. And we know this works because we've tried it all. So we're just kind of going through and talking about the code right now. We could, up here we have Tetris, Birthday, Ode to Joy. But what if we were to take, let's try something. Let's take all of this, and we're just going to copy it and paste it. I don't know if this is going to work. I'm just trying something. We're going to make a case for, and if the music flag equals 1, we don't want Tetris. We want music.starWarTone. So let's copy that. All right. Put that down there. So now we have our case 4. What else do we need to do? Well, we need to eliminate that if button count equals 5. We'll change that to 5. Now, hopefully the Star War tone is somewhere in that library. I don't understand why they wouldn't have put it in there. If not, in fact, let's just do this. Let's take this out and put this down here, and let's take this out and let's put this up here. Why? Because I don't want to cycle through the 3 things that we already know to get to the 4th thing that we don't know. If Star Wars tone is in there, then we'll hear it first. So let's run our sketch. Now let's see what. Oh no, label 4 is not within a switch statement. How do you mean? Case 4, case 3, case label 4. Ah. Hmm. Is not within a switch. How are we not within the switch statement? That should be. Find out. Oh, okay. So that's what it is. Yeah. So here's what we're looking at. This bracket, this curly brace, whatever you want to call it. Let's call it a curly brace. Um, this finishes down here, right? And so case 4 is outside the switch statement. So we'll bring this up here, and now it's inside the switch statement. So let's see what happens. We compile the sketch. And it looks like we're running something. And let's see if we hear a Star War. So that's good. So that music is in the, it is in our, oh come on, it's just going to keep going. It's in our code, or it's in our library. So yeah, that's great. That works, and then we press the button again, and we get the Merry Christmas song. Okay, so that's all great. That's working exactly how we want it to. So we learned about switch case statements today, and we got to improve our knowledge of including this zip library, and we learned about nested if and while statements. A lot of cool stuff going on here. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here, and just as a quick preview, our next video is going to be controlling the door. So automatic doors and windows, and we're going to learn servos. So that's coming up next.